What is up, everybody? Matt Modi here with Daily Grind Fantasy, here to talk to you about DFS specifically for Sunday Night Football. Admittedly, I'm not going to pretend that we have the best game in the world between the Bears and the Chargers, but it's football, it's prime time, you're going to watch it. You might as well have some sweat on it. And if you're going to sweat, you're going to have a sweat on it. You might as well take something from the Daily Grind Fantasy correlation tool, which is incredible. The way the tool works, and we will talk about the performance, don't you worry, after an amazing day for the beginning of the NBA season. The way the tool works is it finds plays on these different DFS apps, so Underdog, Prizepicks, whatever it may be, finds plays that have a positive correlation with each other, meaning if one hits, that the rest are more likely to hit as well. It's really cool doing this on the DFS books like Underdog, like Prizepicks, because the actual sports books, the FanDuels of the world, and FanDuel isn't even giving you player props yet for this game. How lame is that? You can still lock this in on Underdog. But regardless, if you're taking a positive correlation same game parlay on the actual sports books, FanDuel, DraftKings, they're going to lower the payout because they know that these plays are correlated together, so they're not going to give you as good of a payout. The DFS books don't do that. You're getting the same exact payout on Underdog no matter what plays you are adding. So the logic makes a ton of sense, right? And I'll give you a hint. The first play of this slip is the Bears quarterback, Tyson Baggett, over his passing yardage prop. We're also taking Justin Herbert over his passing yardage prop as well. Well, if the quarterbacks are going over their passing yard props, it's more likely that the receivers are going to go over the receiving yardage props as well. And that's exactly the type of formula that's built into the correlation tool. It's really, really good. I cannot stress it enough. Don't take my word for it. Let the results speak for itself. Since August 18th, Daily Grind Fantasy has tracked every single slip that pops up on the correlation tool. Every single one. Look at how profitable it has been. Up 537 units in just over 2 months. That is incredible. If you have a $10 unit size, $10, that's 2 days, 2 coffees, 2 cold brews at Starbucks, you're profiting $5,300 just from the correlation tool. And look at the graph here, right? It had been a little bit of a rougher downswing recently. A little bit down, a little bit down, a little bit down. Nothing explains sports betting more than this graph. It's consistently up and to the right, which is what you want. But there's some downswings, right? It happens. That's the nature of sports betting. Crazy stuff happens. And then look at this massive blow up. This is directly responsible for the NBA season starting. Now, I know I'm giving out an NFL slip. We can't forget about NFL, but think about how profitable this can be doing this with 8 to 10 to 15 NBA games going on a single night. It's incredible. I cannot stress it enough. Literally $10 in just over 2 months of betting is profiting you $5,300. That's great. So that's the tool. That's the success. That's how it works. Now, before I get into the actual plays, I just want to talk about these two numbers here. This number right here, the 169%, is giving you the profit margin. This number right here, the 88.43, is giving you the correlation score. So I'm going to start with the correlation score. The way the correlation score works is it takes into account the correlation coefficient of each leg, which I know that sounds like a math nerdy mouthful. All you really need to know is that this number is just giving you the percentage of how correlated the individual plays are together. The higher, the better. This one at 88.43, that's great. This next one at 90.05, that's great as well. And then next up, the profit margin is exactly what it sounds like. It's your profit margin for the slip total. And this number is calculated by taking into account the correlation coefficient and then also taking into account the positive EV of each individual leg. So it adds up both of those, gives you this number, 169.24%. That's pretty good. This next slip, we can get into this one as well. I'll give you 2 slips for this video because I like you guys so much. But the first one, the Underdog one that we are going to talk about is right here, Underdog Fantasy. Tyson Baggett, as I mentioned, we're taking him to go over his passing yardage prop over 202.5. If he goes over his passing yards, guess who is more likely to go over their receiving yards? The Bears receivers. That logic makes sense, right? If he's passing for a lot of yards, someone's got to take him. Obviously, it's not likely that every single receiver is going to go over, but individually, yeah, it's more likely that they do. So in this case, the value here is on Darnell Mooney to go over 25.5 receiving yards. Next up, we have some plays on the Chargers, also positively correlated together. And when I say that, I just mean that there's a positive correlation. I don't mean that I'm like positively they're correlated, just that there is a positive correlation. Justin Herbert over 265.5 passing yards. If Justin Herbert's passing for a lot of yards, Keenan Allen is probably going to be the beneficiary. So we are taking him to go over 80.5 receiving yards. And then last up, our fifth and final play for this specific slip on Underdog, Austin Eckler under 56.5 rushing yards. This makes sense. A, he hasn't looked healthy coming back from that ankle injury. And B, if the Chargers are passing for a lot of yards, the more likely scenario here is that they are not rushing for a lot of yards, which gives you value on the Austin Eckler under rushing yards. This is our 5-leg slip. Now you're probably asking, why am I playing 5 legs? Well, let's look at this little information dot here. Why this parlay type? We've determined that non-insured is the best pick type for correlated Underdog fantasy slips. Since each leg is correlated, the odds of winning all legs are greater than a non-correlated slip. What this is telling you is that the best bang for your buck when playing an Underdog is 5 picks non-insured. And because that these plays are correlated, it's a higher chance that this slip hits, which makes sense. And if you're wondering, okay, well, why is 5 picks the best? Well, I can teach you that as well. If you go to Tools, DFS Optimizer, now you see all the different options here, right? We see Prizepicks, Underdog, all the way down to Vivid Picks. We're talking Underdog in this specific video. So this little drop down here where you see plus EV plays, if you click that, it pulls up every possible option that you can play on Underdog, from 2 picks all the way down to 5 picks, non-insured versus insured. And then what you see in the parentheses here are these odds, minus 136, minus 137. What these odds are giving you is the implied odds per individual leg of an entry. Basically saying if you were to place a 2-leg parlay and you get the same payout that Underdog is offering, you're getting the implied odds of those 2 legs per leg at minus 136. For 3 picks with insurance, minus 137. Not great. Now here's where it gets a little bit better. 3 picks non-insured. That's good as well at minus 122. 4 picks non-insured, not so great at minus 128. And then pretty much either option of a 5-pick entry is good to go. 5 picks with insurance, 5 picks without insurance. For this slip, DGF is telling us that we should put this on without insurance. So that's what we're going to be doing. And this is the logic why. And while we're here, I'll go ahead and give you a football Underdog slip. It's going to be 3 legs for this weekend. Really quickly, we have 1 college football 1, Marcus Carroll under 23.5 rushing attempts. This is going to hit at like a 63.5% rate as calculated by DGF. We're also going to go ahead and give you Jordan Love under 231.5 passing yards. This is going to hit just under a 56% rate according to DGF. And then another, actually, no, we can't take this one. So another NFL 1, Breece Hall under 0.5 rushing plus receiving touchdowns, basically saying he's not going to hit. This is going to hit at a roughly a 55.5% rate. That was a bonus Underdog slip for you for the NFL, just because you guys are watching with me, which I appreciate. This is the correlation slip that we are locking in, as I mentioned, Underdog Fantasy. We can go over it again real quick, and then I'll give you this last one here. Tyson Baggett over 202.5 passing yards. Darnell Mooney over 25.5 receiving yards. Justin Herbert over 265.5 passing yards. Keenan Allen over 80.5 receiving yards. And then Austin Eckler under 56.5 rushing yards. And then we also, if you're a fan of Boom Fantasy, I have another slip for you guys. Admittedly, very similar to the first one, right? 2 different sports books, 2 different DFS books. So you notice that the plays are very similar. Really, the only difference here is that we're adding DJ Moore to also go over his receiving yardage prop, and we are taking out of the Austin Eckler one. Now, my personal thoughts on whether you should play both of these because they incorporate the same exact flips, right? If Tyson Baggett goes under, then you're screwed on both of these. But my logic is both plays, both slips are positive expected value. If you could get it on 2 different books, then I personally would play that. Because just look at the results here, right? Like The correlation tool, this number tracks every single slip. It tracks both of these. So yeah, if one of them doesn't hit, then you're screwed. But the reward, in my opinion, far outweighs the risk. But at the end of the day, it just depends on how risk averse you are. I think it's worth it. I think you will be more profitable in the long run if you do situations like this and take both slips. You also just have to be aware of a little bit of negative variance, right? You might have a little bit more of a negative downswing, but then you also be able to take advantage of the crazy positive upswings. And that's all I got. That is technically 3 DFS slips for you guys, 2 for Sunday Night Football, 1 for a hodgepodge of college football and NFL games. If you're riding with me, comment and let us know. Other than that, remember to like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Appreciate everybody for watching, and have a good one.